A single father sat in a blind date he never wanted. Across the room, a woman smiles at him, and his entire world shatters. Because the woman standing there shouldn't exist. She has the face of his dead wife, the same dark hair, the same gentle eyes, the same dimple on her left cheek. But his wife has been gone for 3 years, buried, mourned, lost forever. So who is this woman? And why does looking at her feel like drowning and breathing at the same time? Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. The restaurant was quieter than Baylor Dane expected for a Friday night. Soft jazz played through invisible speakers, and the warm glow of Edison bulbs cast everything in amber light. He sat at a corner table, fingers drumming against the white tablecloth, already regretting this. A blind date, at 34 years old. He hadn't been on a date since he was 25. The waiter came by for the 3rd time. "Still waiting for someone, sir?" "Yeah, should be here any minute." Baylor checked his phone. No messages from Boston. His best friend had been relentless about this setup for weeks, wearing him down with the kind of persistence that only a decade of friendship could get away with. "Just one date, man, that's all I'm asking. Her name's Olivia, she teaches kindergarten, and she's been through some stuff. My cousin's girlfriend works with her and says she's really sweet. I think you two might actually understand each other." Baylor hadn't asked what stuff meant. He didn't care. He'd already decided this would be exactly 1 hour of polite conversation, followed by a graceful exit and a firm, "told you so" to Boston. He reached for his water glass just as the front door opened. A woman stepped inside, scanning the restaurant with the kind of nervous uncertainty he recognized immediately. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She wore a simple beige dress and carried a small purse clutched tight against her side. The hostess approached her, and the woman nodded, smiled that tentative smile people use when they're anxious. That's when she turned toward his table. The water glass slipped from Baylor's fingers. It hit the table hard, water splashing across the white cloth, ice cubes scattering. His hands started shaking. His vision tunneled. The restaurant sounds, the jazz, the conversations, the clinking silverware, all of it faded into a high-pitched ringing in his ears. It was Elise. Elise was walking toward him. His wife, his dead wife, walking across this restaurant in a beige dress, looking confused and concerned and so impossibly, heartbreakingly alive. "Connor?" The woman's voice cut through the ringing. She stood at the table now, her brow furrowed with worry. "Are you okay?" That voice. Baylor gripped the edge of the table, his knuckles white. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Every rational part of his brain screamed that this was impossible. Elise was gone. He'd watched her die. He'd buried her. But his eyes wouldn't stop seeing her face. The woman, Olivia, his brain supplied uselessly, reached out like she might touch his arm. "You look really pale. Should I get someone?" "I'm sorry." The words came out strangled. Baylor stood so fast his chair scraped loud against the floor. Other diners turned to look. "I'm so sorry. I can't. I have to go." He pulled his wallet out with shaking hands, threw 2 20s on the table, way too much for a glass of water, but he couldn't think about that now, and walked toward the exit. Not running. Not quite, but close. "Wait, did I—" Olivia's voice followed him, confused and hurt. "Did I do something wrong?" Baylor didn't answer. Couldn't answer. He pushed through the restaurant door into the November cold and kept walking until he reached his truck 3 blocks away. Only then did he let himself fall apart. His phone rang 4 times before he finally answered it. He was still sitting in his truck, parked on a side street, his hands still shaking. "What the hell happened?" Boston's voice was equal parts confused and concerned. "Olivia just called me. She said you ran out of the restaurant like the building was on fire." Baylor pressed his forehead against the steering wheel. "I couldn't do it." "Couldn't do what? Have a conversation? Man, I know dating is scary after everything, but she looks exactly like Elise." Silence on the other end. "What?" "Olivia." Baylor's voice cracked on the name. "She has Elise's face, Boston. The same hair, the same eyes, the same everything. Down to the dimple on her left cheek. I looked at her and I saw my wife." That's not possible." Boston sounded genuinely shocked. I've never met her before tonight. Sarah's the one who knows her from work. She just said Olivia was new to Columbus and seemed really sweet. She never mentioned anything about... You've never seen her? No, man. I was just the messenger. If I'd known she looked like Elise, I never would have... Boston's voice was thick with guilt now. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Baylor let out a shaky breath. At least that made sense. Boston would never have put me through this intentionally. It's not your fault, Baylor said. You couldn't have known. What do you mean she looks exactly like Elise? I mean exactly. Like looking at a ghost. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I just had to get out of there. Boston was quiet for a long moment. Baylor could hear him breathing, could almost hear the wheels turning in his head. Baylor, didn't you tell me Elise was adopted? What does that have to do with... Sarah mentioned something about Olivia when she was trying to convince me to set you guys up. She said Olivia had moved to Columbus looking for family, that she was searching for someone. Baylor's heart stopped. A sister, Boston continued slowly, the pieces clicking together. Sarah said Olivia was searching for a twin sister she'd been separated from when they were kids. The pieces fell into place with a sickening click. Elise had been found wandering alone at a state fair in Oregon when she was 3. No parents, no identification, no memory of where she came from. The police searched for weeks, but nobody ever claimed her. She'd spent her whole life believing she'd been abandoned, that nobody had wanted her. I think you just met your wife's twin sister, Boston said quietly. Baylor didn't go home right away. He drove aimlessly through Columbus for an hour, his mind spinning through memories he'd carefully boxed away. Elise at 20, walking into that community center where he was teaching basic car maintenance to single mothers. She'd been late, flustered, apologizing to everyone as she found a seat. When she smiled at him, shy at first, then radiant, he'd forgotten every word of his prepared lesson. Elise at 22, saying yes when he proposed in the parking lot of that same community center. No fancy restaurant, no elaborate plan, just the two of them and a ring he'd saved 6 months to afford. Elise at 23, holding their newborn daughter with tears streaming down her face. She's perfect, she whispered. We made something perfect. Elise at 28, lying in a hospital bed with machines beeping around her. Her body failing, but her spirit somehow still bright. Promise me you'll find happiness again, she'd said, squeezing his hand with what little strength she had left. Promise me you won't stop living. He'd promised, but he'd never intended to keep it. When Baylor finally pulled into his driveway, it was past 9. The house was dark, except for the living room lamp Clara always left on when he was out. He found his daughter curled up on the couch in her pajamas, supposedly doing homework, but clearly waiting up for him. At 9 years old, she was too smart for her own good. How was your date? Clara asked, closing her math textbook. Baylor sank into the armchair across from her. It was complicated. Did she like you? I don't know, sweetheart. I didn't really give her a chance to. Clara studied him with those serious brown eyes that reminded him so much of Elise. Was she mean? No, not mean. Baylor rubbed his face with both hands. She just reminded me of someone. Mom? Sometimes his daughter was too perceptive. Yeah, he admitted quietly. Mom. Clara was quiet for a moment, picking at the corner of her textbook. Do you think Mom would want to be alone forever? The question hit him square in the chest. No, Baylor said honestly. No, I don't think she would. Then maybe you should give the lady another chance. Clara stood up, gathering her homework. Mom used to say, second chances are how we fix our mistakes. She kissed his cheek and headed upstairs, leaving Baylor alone with thoughts that felt too big for his head. The text came 3 days later, while Baylor was under the hood of a 2015 Honda Civic at his shop. I think we need to talk, Olivia. He stared at the message for a full minute before Boston noticed. That her? His friend leaned against the Honda, arms crossed. Yeah. You gonna answer?
Baylor set down his wrench. His hands were covered in grease, but somehow that felt appropriate. Everything in his life felt messy right now. I don't know what to say to her. How about the truth? Boston suggested. Crazy concept, I know. The truth is insane. Hey, sorry I ran out on you, but you look exactly like my dead wife, who turns out to be your long-lost twin sister. That sounds like something out of a bad movie. Yeah, well, sometimes life is a bad movie. Boston pulled out his own phone. I already talked to Sarah, and Sarah talked to her. Olivia knows something weird happened. She deserves an explanation, man. Baylor closed his eyes. Did Sarah tell her about Elise? Just the basics, that you're a widower, that your wife passed away 3 years ago, and also that she looks exactly like your wife, but she didn't went into details. She figured that's a conversation you two need to have face to face. The wrench felt heavy in Baylor's hand. He set it down carefully on the workbench. Where? She suggested Miller Park. Tomorrow at 2. She'll be there. Baylor took a breath, nodded. Okay, he said quietly. Okay. Miller Park was mostly empty on a Tuesday afternoon in November. The trees were bare, their branches dark against a gray sky that threatened rain. Baylor arrived early, as always, and found a bench near the playground where Clara used to play when she was younger. He saw Olivia before she saw him. She walked down the path slowly, hands tucked into the pockets of a green jacket, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. Without the restaurant lighting and his panic, he could see the small differences now. Olivia was maybe an inch taller. Her cheekbones were slightly sharper. Her walk was different, more deliberate where Elise had been fluid.
But the resemblance was still staggering. When Olivia spotted him, she hesitated. Then she walked over and sat on the opposite end of the bench, leaving a careful distance between them. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "Your friend's girlfriend told me you're a widower," Olivia finally said, "that your wife passed away 3 years ago?" Baylor nodded, not trusting his voice yet. "And I'm guessing I look like her?" "Exactly like her. It's uncanny." Olivia took a shaky breath. "Can you tell me about her? About your wife?" So Baylor told her. About meeting Elise at the community center, about her laugh that could warm the coldest room, about her work as a pediatric nurse, about their wedding, their daughter, the 6 beautiful years they had together. And then he told her about the illness, the viral myocarditis that attacked Elise's heart, the 4 months of fighting, the Tuesday morning in March when she died holding his hand. By the time he finished, Olivia was crying. Olivia pulled something from her jacket pocket, a photograph, worn at the edges from being handled too many times. She held it out to him. Baylor took it with shaking hands. The photo showed 2 little girls, maybe 3 years old, sitting together on a porch swing. They were identical, same dark hair and pigtails, same bright smiles, wearing matching yellow dresses. Behind them stood a young couple, the man's hand on one girl's shoulder, the woman's hand on the other. "That's us," Olivia whispered. "That's me and my sister. And those are our parents." Baylor couldn't speak. He stared at the photo, at the family Elise had never known she had, at the life she'd been ripped away from.
"We were at the Oregon State Fair," Olivia continued, her voice thick with emotion. "My parents said it was crowded. Thousands of people everywhere. They were only distracted for a minute. Just 1 minute. And when they looked back, my sister was gone." A tear fell onto the photograph. Baylor wasn't sure if it was his or hers. They searched for her for the rest of their lives. Filed police reports, hired private investigators, never gave up hope. They died 5 years ago in a car accident, still believing she was out there somewhere, still looking. "She never knew," Baylor said roughly. "Elise never knew she had a family searching for her. She died thinking she'd been abandoned, that nobody had ever wanted her. The weight of that truth crushed down on both of them. Olivia turned to look at him fully, tears streaming down her face. "Tell me about her, please. Tell me everything about my sister." They talked for 3 hours. Baylor told Olivia everything about Elisa's resilience, her kindness, her work with foster kids because she understood what it was like to grow up alone. About the way she cried happy tears when Clara was born. About the notes she left in his lunch. About her terrible singing voice and her love of sunflowers. He told her about the good years and the hard years, and the final year when everything fell apart. Olivia listened to every word, crying and laughing and mourning a sister she'd never gotten to know. In return, she shared stories about their parents. Their mother was a teacher, their father a carpenter. They'd been good people who loved their daughters fiercely. They'd celebrated the twins' birthday every year, even when one of them was missing. They'd kept a room ready, just in case. "I've been searching for her since I was 18, Olivia admitted. "I knew I had a twin out there somewhere. I could feel it, you know? Like part of me was missing. I've spent years looking through foster care records, reaching out to agencies, following dead-end leads."
"And you ended up in Columbus," Baylor said. "I moved here 6 months ago because an old record suggested a girl matching her description had been placed with a foster family in Ohio. It was another dead end. But I stayed because, I don't know, something felt right about this place. The universe had a cruel sense of timing. By the time they left the park, the sun was setting and the temperature had dropped. Clara would be home from school by now, probably wondering where he was. Would you," Baylor hesitated, "would you want to meet her, my daughter? She's 9. She remembers Elise. Not perfectly, but enough." Olivia looked at him with something like hope and fear mixed together. "Are you sure?" "No," I admitted, "but I think Elise would want you to know her daughter, and I think Clara deserves to know her mom had a family who loved her." "Then yes," Olivia said softly, "I'd like that very much." Clara met Olivia on a Saturday afternoon. Baylor had tried to prepare his daughter, tried to explain the impossible situation without overwhelming her, but the moment Clara walked into the living room and saw Olivia sitting on the couch, she stopped dead. "Mommy?" The word was barely a whisper. Baylor's heart broke clean in half. "No, sweetheart," he said gently, kneeling beside her. "This is Olivia. She was your mom's twin sister." Clara stared, her young mind trying to process what her eyes were seeing. Then, slowly, she walked closer. Olivia sat very still, tears already streaming down her face as this little girl studied her with intense focus. "You look just like her," Clara finally said. "I know," Olivia managed. "I'm sorry if that's confusing. Do you braid hair?" The question was so unexpected that Olivia laughed through her tears. Yes, I do. Mommy used to braid my hair every Sunday before church." Clara climbed onto the couch beside Olivia with the fearless trust that only children possess. "Will you braid mine?" And just like that, something shifted. Olivia braided Clara's hair with gentle, practiced fingers while Baylor watched from the kitchen doorway. His daughter chattered about school and her friends and her favorite books, and Olivia listened like every word was precious. It should have felt wrong. It should have felt like a betrayal. Instead, it felt like something broken was slowly beginning to heal. Over the next 6 months, Olivia became part of their lives in small, gradual ways. At first, it was just about honoring Elisa's memory. Olivia came over once a week, always with advance notice, always careful not to intrude, and asked questions about her sister. What was her favorite food? What made her laugh? What were her dreams? Baylor shared it all, and in sharing, he found a strange kind of healing. Talking about Elise didn't hurt as much when he was talking to someone who genuinely wanted to know her, who mourned the sister she'd never gotten to meet. Clara gravitated toward Olivia naturally, drawn to the familiar features and gentle manner. She showed Olivia her artwork, her favorite books, the soccer trophies she'd won. Olivia listened with genuine interest, never trying to replace Elise, but simply being present. "Can Olivia come to my game on Saturday?" Clara asked one evening in February, 3 months after they'd met. Baylor looked up from the dishes. "If she wants to, but she might be busy, sweetie." "I want to," Olivia said quickly. She'd stayed for dinner, something that had become a regular Wednesday tradition. "I'd love to watch you play." So she came to the game, and then to the next one. And somewhere in those cold Saturday mornings, cheering from the sidelines with terrible coffee and a borrowed team scarf, something shifted. Baylor started noticing things he'd been too numb to see before. The way Olivia laughed at Clara's terrible knock-knock jokes. The way she helped clean up after dinner without being asked. The way she looked at his daughter with pure, uncomplicated love. By April, Olivia had a key to the house. It had been Clara's idea, actually. What if we're not home and she wants to drop something off? And she always has to wait on the porch when she comes early. That's not nice. Baylor had agreed, telling himself it was just practical, just convenient, nothing more. But then there was the day in May when he came home from the shop to find Olivia and Clara in the kitchen covered in flour and laughing hysterically over a failed attempt at cookies. The house smelled like vanilla and burnt sugar, and there was batter on the ceiling. He still didn't know how they'd managed that, and Olivia had flour in her hair and on her cheek. She smiled at him when he walked in, and Baylor felt something in his chest crack open. It wasn't the same feeling he'd had with Elise. This was different, quieter, gentler, built on months of shared grief and gradual trust. He'd been so focused on seeing the similarities that he'd missed all the ways Olivia was completely her own person. The way she wrinkled her nose when she was concentrating, the way she hummed off-key while cooking, the way she talked to Clara like an equal, never talking down, always genuinely interested in what a 9-year-old had to say. "You okay?" Olivia asked, tilting her head. "Yeah," Baylor said, his voice rough. "Yeah, I'm good." But he wasn't good. He was terrified. Because he was starting to fall for her, and he had no idea if that was okay. Olivia was falling too, though she tried desperately to fight it. She'd moved to Columbus searching for a sister she'd never known, and instead she'd found a family. Clara had wrapped herself around Olivia's heart so completely that leaving now would feel like losing a limb. And Baylor. Jeez. Baylor was everything she hadn't known she was looking for. She loved the way he was with Clara, patient and playful and so clearly devoted. She loved the quiet strength he carried, the way he'd built a life from grief without letting it consume him. She loved his terrible dad jokes and the way he always made sure everyone else had eaten before he took a plate for himself. But she couldn't let herself want this. It felt like a betrayal. To Elise. To the memory of a sister she'd never known. What kind of person fell in love with her dead twin's husband? What kind of person wanted to step into a life that wasn't hers to take? She told herself she would pull back, put some distance between them, stop coming over so often. But then Clara would text her with a picture of something funny that happened at school, or Baylor would call to ask if she wanted to grab lunch, and Olivia couldn't bring herself to say no. By June, 6 months after that disastrous blind date, Olivia knew she was in too deep. It was a Sunday morning. She'd come over to braid Clara's hair for church, like she did most Sundays now. Clara was chattering about summer camp while Olivia worked through a French braid, and Baylor was making pancakes in the kitchen. It was so domestic, so perfectly normal, so much like a real family that it made Olivia's chest ache. "All done," she said, securing the braid with a hair tie. Clara ran to the mirror, admiring the work. "Perfect! Thanks, Olivia!" She hugged Olivia tight, then bounded off to find her shoes. Olivia stood there for a moment, her heart too full and too broken at the same time. This was what she wanted. This house, this child, this life. But it wasn't hers. It was Elise's. "You okay?" She turned to find Baylor watching her from the kitchen doorway. concern etched on his face. "Yeah," Olivia lied. "Just thinking." "About what?" "Everything. Nothing. How much it would hurt to walk away. How much it would hurt to stay, knowing these feelings would never be returned."
"About how lucky Elise was," Olivia said instead. "To have all of this. To have you and Clara." Something flickered across Baylor's face, an emotion she couldn't quite read. "I think we were the lucky ones," he said quietly. "And now, I think we're lucky to have you too." The words hung in the air between them, weighted with meaning neither of them was quite ready to acknowledge. Olivia swallowed hard. "I should probably go. I have some errands to run before—" "Stay for breakfast," Baylor interrupted. "Please. The pancakes are almost done, and Clara will be disappointed if you leave." Olivia knew she should say no, knew she should start creating distance before her heart got any more attached, but she nodded anyway. "Okay, just for breakfast." They both knew it was more than that. Things came to a head 3 weeks later, on a cold November evening, 7 months since they'd first met in that park. Olivia had decided she couldn't keep her feelings hidden anymore. The not knowing was killing her. Every lingering look, every almost touch, every moment when she thought maybe he felt the same way but couldn't be sure. She had to tell him, had to lay her heart out there even if it meant losing everything. The uncertainty was worse than rejection could ever be. She drove to his house, her hands shaking on the steering wheel. Clara was at a sleepover, so it would just be the two of them. Perfect timing to finally have the conversation they'd been avoiding for months. Olivia had a key now. That felt significant somehow, a sign of how intertwined their lives had become. She let herself in quietly, planning to find Baylor and ask if they could talk. That's when she heard his voice from the kitchen. He was on the phone, presumably with Boston based on the one-sided conversation. Olivia should have announced herself, should have made noise, but something in his tone made her freeze in the hallway.
"I don't know what I feel," Baylor was saying, his voice heavy with frustration. "When I'm with her, it's like Elise is still here somehow, like I got a second chance at having my wife back. But is that love, or am I just using Olivia because she looks like Elise? I can't tell the difference anymore, and that terrifies me." The world tilted sideways. "Claire is attached to her," Baylor continued, "and I think Olivia might have real feelings for me. But what if I'm just projecting? What if every time I look at her, I'm not actually seeing her at all, just a ghost wearing her face?" Olivia pressed her hand against her mouth to keep from making a sound. 7 months of building this fragile, beautiful thing between them, and the whole time he'd been looking through her to someone else. She tried to leave quietly, tried to make it to the door before the tears came, but the old floorboard in the hallway creaked, the same one Baylor kept meaning to fix, and the sound echoed like a gunshot in the quiet house. "I'll call you back," she heard him say. Footsteps. "Olivia?" She turned to face him, her vision already blurred with tears. "How much did you hear?" he asked quietly. "Enough." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "Is that all I am to you? A replacement? A way to pretend she never died?" "Olivia." "Answer me!" The shout surprised them both. 7 months, Baylor. 7 months of dinners and movie nights and braiding Clara's hair and convincing myself that maybe this could be real. Was I just fooling myself the whole time?
"I don't know." The admission tore out of him like a confession. "I don't know what this is between us. I look at you and I see her, and I hate myself for it because you deserve better than that." "I fell in love with you." The words came from somewhere deep and desperate inside her. "Not with the idea of replacing my sister, with you. The way you are with Clara, the way you've kept Elise's memory alive without letting it destroy you, the way you make me feel like I finally belong somewhere after spending my whole life searching for a family I never got to know." Baylor reached for her, but she stepped back. "But I can't do this if I'm just a ghost to you. I can't spend my life wondering if you're seeing me or seeing her. I won't be someone's second choice, someone's consolation prize." "You're not? Then tell me what I am." She was crying fully now. months of uncertainty and hope and fear pouring out. Tell me that when you look at me, you see Olivia, not Elise, not some second chance at what you lost. Me. The silence stretched between them, heavy and damning. Baylor opened his mouth, closed it. His own eyes were wet now, his face twisted with an anguish that might have broken her heart if it wasn't already shattered. "I can't," he finally whispered. "I can't tell you that because I don't know if it's true. And you deserve someone who's sure." Olivia felt something inside her crumble to dust. "You're right. I do deserve that." She walked to the door, each step feeling like moving through water. Her hand was on the doorknob when Baylor spoke again. "Please don't go."
She turned back. He was standing in the middle of the living room, looking lost and broken and so painfully uncertain. "I think the best thing I can do is leave," Olivia said, surprised by how calm her voice sounded. "I never should have let myself fall for you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I messed everything up." "You didn't mess anything up. This is all on me. It doesn't matter whose fault it is." She wiped at her tears with the back of her hand. "What matters is that you're not ready. Maybe you'll never be ready. And I can't wait around hoping you'll wake up one day and actually see me." She opened the door. Cold November air rushed in. "Tell Clara I'm sorry. Tell her I love her. Tell her sometimes people leave even when they don't want to." "Olivia, wait!" But she was already walking to her car, her vision blurred, her heart in pieces. Baylor stood in the doorway, wanting to run after her, but not knowing what to say. Because she was right. He wasn't sure. He couldn't promise he loved her, and not just the shadow of his dead wife. And Olivia deserved certainty. She deserved someone who looked at her and saw only her. He watched her taillights disappear into the November darkness. Then he stood there in the cold for a long time, wondering if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. The days after Olivia left were the worst. Clara asked about her constantly at first. "When is Olivia coming over? Can we call her? Did I do something wrong?" Baylor had to explain gently that sometimes adults needed space, that Olivia still cared about her, but needed to be away for a while. Claire cried, and Baylor held his daughter while his own heart broke all over again. Work became his escape. He threw himself into the shop, taking on extra jobs, staying late every night. Boston tried to talk to him, but Baylor shut him down every time. "You should call her," Boston said one afternoon. "And say what? That you made a mistake, that you miss her, that you want to try again." "She deserves someone who's sure about her," Baylor said flatly. "I'm not that person." "You're an idiot." "Probably." 2 weeks turned into 3. 3 weeks turned into a month. The absence of Olivia became a presence of its own. Empty chair at the dinner table. Silent Sunday mornings without hair braiding. Clara's artwork going uncommented on. Baylor tried to convince himself this was better, cleaner. Olivia could move on and find someone who loved her for herself, not as a replacement for someone else. But late at night, when he couldn't sleep, Baylor would pull up the photos on his phone. There were only a few. Olivia and Clara at the soccer game. Olivia laughing at something stupid he'd said over dinner. Olivia reading to Clara on the couch. In every photo, she was looking at his daughter with such pure love that it hurt to see. And in the ones where she was looking at him, geez, had he really been so blind? The way she looked at him had nothing to do with Elise. It was Olivia's own hope, her own affection, her own vulnerability laid bare. He'd been so focused on his own grief that he'd missed what was right in front of him. The turning point came on a Wednesday night. Baylor was putting Clara to bed when she asked the question he'd been dreading. "Is Olivia ever coming back?" He sat on the edge of her bed, smoothing her hair back. "I don't know, sweetheart. Did you make her leave?" The question hit him like a physical blow. "It's complicated," he said weakly. "That's what grown-ups always say when they mess up." Clara's voice was small but pointed. "Uncle Boston says you're scared. Are you scared, Daddy?" Baylor took a shaky breath. "Yeah, I think I am."
Of what? How did he explain this to a 9-year-old? How did he explain that loving someone new felt like betraying someone he'd lost? That every time he looked at Olivia, he saw both the woman he'd loved and the woman he was afraid to love. "I'm scared of forgetting Mommy," he finally admitted, "and I'm scared of not being fair to Olivia." Clara was quiet for a moment, thinking with that serious expression she got sometimes. "Mommy told me something before she died. I was only 6, but I remember. She said love doesn't run out. She said we have enough love in our hearts for lots of people, and loving new people doesn't make us love old people any less." Tears burned in Baylor's eyes. "She said when she died, she wanted us to keep loving people, to let new people in, because that's what love is supposed to do, grow bigger, not smaller." "She told you all that?" "Well, she said it simpler, but that's what she meant." Clara reached up and wiped a tear from his cheek. "I think Olivia loves us, and I think you love her too. You're just being dumb about it." Baylor let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "When did you get so smart?" "I've always been smart. You just don't listen." He pulled his daughter into a fierce hug, holding her tight while everything inside him rearranged itself. Elise had made him promise to find happiness again. But more than that, she'd raised a daughter who understood what love actually meant, that it multiplied instead of divided, that opening your heart to someone new didn't mean closing it to someone you'd lost. And Olivia had never asked him to forget Elise. She'd honored her wife's memory, learned everything she could about the sister she'd never known, loved Clara with the same fierce protectiveness Elise would have had. She hadn't tried to replace anyone. She'd just tried to love them. And he'd thrown that back in her face because he was too afraid to let himself heal. "I need to fix this," Baylor said, pulling back to look at Clara.
His daughter smiled. "Then what are you still doing here?" Baylor tried calling first. Olivia didn't answer. He tried texting. The messages showed as delivered but not read. He showed up at her apartment on Thursday evening. No answer at the door. Friday he went to the elementary school where she taught, but the secretary told him Miss Olivia had called in sick. He left a note. No response. By Saturday he was desperate enough to call Boston. "Have you heard from her?" "No, man. Why would I?" "Because I'm running out of options here. I need to talk to her." Boston sighed. "Sarah mentioned that Olivia's been staying with her friend Marissa. They usually go to the farmer's market downtown on Saturday mornings. You might catch her there." Baylor was already grabbing his keys. The downtown farmer's market was crowded with weekend shoppers browsing vegetables and handmade crafts. Baylor moved through the crowd searching for her. He found her at a booth selling fresh flowers. She was holding a bouquet of sunflowers, Elise's favorite, he thought, with a sharp pang. And laughing at something the vendor said. A woman beside her, presumably Marissa, was examining a display of dahlias. Baylor's heart hammered in his chest. He'd rehearsed what to say 100 times on the drive over, but now that she was in front of him, every word evaporated. He must have made some sound because Olivia turned. The laughter died on her face. The sunflowers drooped in her hand. "Baylor," she said quietly, "what are you doing here?" "I needed to see you." Marissa looked between them, reading the tension immediately. "I'll just go look at the jam over there," she said, giving Olivia a meaningful look before disappearing into the crowd. Olivia set the sunflowers down carefully. "I don't think there's anything left to say." "There's everything left to say." Baylor stepped closer. "I've been an idiot. I'm not arguing with that. You were right about everything, about me being scared and confused and not being fair to you. The words tumbled out in a rush. But I need you to know something. You weren't a replacement. You were never just someone wearing Elise's face." Olivia's expression didn't change, but he saw her hands tighten on the edge of the flower table. "When I look at you," Baylor continued, "I see someone who braids my daughter's hair on Sunday mornings and cries during kids' movies and leaves terrible puns in my lunch bag. I see someone who spent 7 months learning about a sister she never met just to honor her memory.
I see someone brave enough to fall in love with a broken man and a grieving daughter, even though it would have been easier to walk away. Baylor, I see Olivia, he said firmly, not Elise, not a ghost, you. And I'm so sorry it took me this long to figure that out. A tear slipped down her cheek. She brushed it away quickly. How do I know you mean that? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. How do I know this isn't just guilt or loneliness? How do I know you're actually ready? It was a fair question, one he'd been asking himself for the past week. I don't have perfect answers, Baylor admitted. I'm probably always going to love Elise. She was my first love, the mother of my daughter, and I can't just turn that off. But Clara said something that made sense to me. She said love doesn't run out, it grows. Loving Elise doesn't mean I can't love you. Remembering her doesn't mean I can't build something new with you. Olivia was crying openly now, not bothering to hide it. I've spent 7 months falling in love with you, with your kindness and your strength and the way you love my daughter like she's your own. I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose you. And if you're willing to give me another chance, if you can forgive me for being so blind, I promise I will spend every day making sure you know exactly how much you mean to me. What if it's not enough? Olivia's voice broke. What if we try this and you wake up one day and realize you are wrong? Then we'll figure it out together. But I don't think I'm wrong. My heart knows the difference between grief and love, and what I feel for you is real. The market bustled around them, vendors calling out prices, children laughing, the smell of fresh bread and flowers mixing in the cold air. But in that moment, it was just the two of them. Olivia took a shaky breath. Clara must miss having someone braid her hair. Hope flared in Baylor's chest. She does. She talks about you every day. And you? Do you miss me? Every single second. Olivia looked at him for a long moment, searching his face for something. Whatever she found there must have been enough, because she stepped forward and let him pull her into his arms. She fit perfectly against him, her head tucked under his chin, her hands clutching the back of his jacket. Baylor held her tight, breathing in the scent of her shampoo and feeling the tension drain from both of them. I'm still scared, Olivia whispered against his chest. Me too, but I think that's okay. We can be scared together. She pulled back just enough to look up at him. If we do this, if we try again, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me that when you look at me, you'll tell me what you see. When doubt creeps in, when you're confused, when you're scared, talk to me. Don't let it build up until it explodes. I can handle honesty. I can't handle being left in the dark. I promise, Baylor said, and meant it with everything in him. Olivia stood on her toes and kissed him. It was soft and tentative and tasted like tears and hope mixed together. When they pulled apart, both of them were smiling through the crying. Clara's going to be impossible when she finds out she was right, Olivia said. Baylor laughed. She's already impossible. This just gives her bragging rights. Marissa reappeared from wherever she'd been hiding, took one look at them and grinned. So I guess we're not going to lunch angry eating ice cream anymore. Nope, Olivia said, lacing her fingers through Baylor's. I think I have other plans. They took it slow this time. No rushing, no assumptions, just honest conversations and careful steps forward. Olivia came over for dinner that Sunday, chattering a mile a minute about everything that had happened in the past month. Baylor watched them together and felt something in his chest settle into place. This was right. Not easy, not simple, but right. Over the next few months, they built something new, something that honored the past without being trapped by it. Baylor told Olivia stories about Elise, and Olivia shared what little she knew about their parents. They visited Elise's grave together, the three of them, and Olivia left sunflowers. Thank you, she whispered to the headstone, for him, for Clara, for loving them so well. Baylor took her hand and held tight. There were hard days. Days when Baylor's grief caught him off guard and he needed space to fall apart. Days when Olivia felt the weight of stepping into a family that wasn't originally hers. But they talked through it. They were honest. They chose each other even when it would have been easier not to. A year after that farmer's market conversation, Baylor proposed. Not at a fancy restaurant or a scenic overlook. In their kitchen, while Olivia was making breakfast and Clara was doing homework at the table. It was ordinary and perfect and exactly right. Yes, Olivia said, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, of course, yes. Clara cheered loud enough that the neighbors probably heard. They got married on a Saturday in June in the same small church where Baylor and Elise had exchanged vows 15 years earlier. It felt like closing one circle and opening another. Olivia wore Elise's wedding ring on a chain around her neck, a gesture Baylor hadn't asked for, but that meant everything. Clara stood beside them as their maid of honor, beaming with pride. When the officiant pronounced them married, Clara whispered loud enough for the front 3 rows to hear, "Told you were being dumb about it." The whole church laughed.
4 years later, Baylor stood in his backyard watching Clara teach her little brother how to kick a soccer ball. The kid was only 3, but already showing the same fierce determination his big sister had at that age. Olivia came up beside him, slipping her hand into his. Her other hand rested on the small swell of her stomach, 6 months along with their second child together. "What are you thinking about?" Baylor said honestly. "How lucky I am. How close I came to missing all of this because I was too afraid to let myself heal." Olivia leaned her head against his shoulder. "Do you think Elise would approve?" It was a question she asked sometimes, usually late at night when doubt crept in. Baylor had learned to recognize it for what it was, not insecurity about their relationship, but a sister's hope that she was honoring someone she'd never gotten to know. "I think Elise would love you," Baylor said. "I think she'd be grateful that Clara has someone who loves her the way you do. I think she'd probably make fun of me for taking so long to figure out what was right in front of me." Olivia laughed softly. "Sounds like she was smart. The smartest. But so are you. And I love you. Not because you remind me of her. Just because you're you." It was something he made sure to say often now. A promise kept, a truth reaffirmed. "I love you too," Olivia said. In the yard, Clara tackled her little brother in a hug, and they both tumbled into the grass, giggling. The sound was bright and perfect and full of life. Baylor had learned that grief and joy could coexist, that loving someone new didn't diminish the love you had for someone you lost, that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let yourself be happy again. And standing there with Olivia beside him and his children playing in the grass, and another baby on the way, Baylor finally understood what Elise had meant when she made him promise to find happiness again. She hadn't wanted him to forget her. She had wanted him to keep living. And he was, fully, messily, beautifully. He was finally keeping his promise. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe. We share stories like this every week. Stories about second chances, finding love in unexpected places, and learning that healing doesn't mean forgetting.